The only reason we would go to Mars is for reasons that have nothing to do with Mars itself. For reasons of national prestige and scientific exploration is, I think, the reason why we all want to go to Mars. But the thing that motivates the expenditure of those billions of dollars is national prestige, technological development, a useful joint project. It's like when you were in college and you do these big projects, you participate in some kind of engineering challenge or what have you. The end result of the challenge, the device that you build with your classmates, is not the point. The point is to learn to work with your classmates. But we may find ourselves going to Mars as an international.
You mean the manned expedition? We've already gone to Mars.
Yes, for the point in
right.
I think we're unlikely to send people to Mars because of the expense, unless there's a reason to do it other than just the scientific data that can be gathered.
Well, the latest study of Mars said that you could send an expedition under reasonable conditions, three-year-long expedition at a cost of $55 billion. That's 4 years of investment.
Yeah, we could absolutely do it.
Duh, we're going to be spending the money anyway, and meanwhile, getting nothing for it.
I'd just like to say that I find Mars intrinsically interesting, even if it's a dead rock, and I don't think that I'm absolutely unique in that. We have a tropism towards landscape with this notion that we might be able to inhabit. So, in a way, if Mars is dead, it's actually more than because you don't have this philosophical issue of the other life form, the alien, the problem of good. You just don't have the problem of investigating. You have a dead rock to inhabit. So, there's a strong feeling that I have that I think is, I see shared occasionally, that it would be easier and better if Mars were dead, because then it becomes a human space immediately. So, the landscape. And then also there's this challenge, like you were saying, the engineering challenges. The hardest thing that we can do now as a technological species is always of interest. That was what the moon race was about. It wasn't entirely for this kind of hubris of, but we're so good now at engineering that we can even cross space to our own moon, which is so mind-boggling that the Cold War was irrelevant compared to the mind-boggling fact that we could cross space like that. When, just a generation before, or 20 years before, it was inconceivable to even imagine it, except in the wildest of science fantasies, not science fiction. So the hardest thing that we can do now is always of interest. And going to Mars is really, as Greg's brother was saying yesterday, way harder than going to the moon for various technical reasons. And then also, we are now in control of this planet's global management issues. We are now planetary stewards. And although Mars and Venus are radically different, they are the two best comparative planetology subjects that we have, being approximately the same size, and only just a little bit closer and a little bit further away from the Sun. So what we learn in terms of comparative planetology about whether the paleoclimate, and here we're talking big paleo because going back billions of years, is maybe useful stuff. One always has to point to the hole in the ozone layer being discovered partly because of investigations into the chemistry of the atmosphere of Venus. And that is something never to be forgotten, especially when trying to support the space program. So these are, I think, other reasons than political or practical to consider the Mars project as being a great idea. And really, it would be easier to proceed if we could just say the place is dead. Now, we certainly can't say that, but the investigation is also in the motive. You've got the life investigation. And
answering that
question is another great reason to go. And I agree. It's good that we should publicize all this. We should have the full discussion out there, and even begin to campaign again for the importance of going to Mars in person, because humans on Mars can accomplish. A human mission to Mars will accomplish something between 100 to 1,000 times as much scientific investigation as any of these little rovers, as clever as they are. They're just not as good at exploration as humans are.
Yeah, so. They're not as adaptable, they're not as versatile, they're just not as fast.
It's almost not as fun. Well, and Carnegie Mellon, this is funny, I'm talking about when you make a rover, because they're the ones that decided that they could put a rover down into Mount Erebus, a live volcano in Antarctica, and they got it like 10 feet over the edge and immediately stalled, crashed. And, it was like one of those spectacular engineering disasters. not so easy to make these things go. And anytime you see one of these engineering contests that they have down on the gym floors, and high school teams have made robots that are supposed to do various things, and they all begin to crawl over each other. These are the most entertaining exercises in how engineering can go wrong. and also crashing things into Mars on a regular basis. It's something like a 50% success rate.
Yeah.
For the robot missions to Mars, which of course is a little bit daunting if you do anything about sending humans to Mars.
Oh, yeah.
You want it better than 50% chance.
Yeah, on the other hand, a manned mission to Mars, many of the problems that have been fatal to our robot probes would not have been fatal to the mission if there had been somebody out there who wasn't on the other end of the 30-minute delay.
Right. You can tell the difference between a yard and a zero.
So NASA's private interior estimate of the risk of the Apollo mission first was 20%.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and they almost lost one out of how many successful missions were there?
Yeah, and then they had that incredible, spectacular near disaster.
Yeah,
and then of course they burned up 3 guys on the path.
Yeah.
So 20%.
Yeah, so that's pretty close. Yeah. I mean, that's why there was a speech written for Nixon before they even took off, commiserating the fact that wasn't, and Neil weren't going to come back. You can find the text of that on the internet.
One of the things they do out of the simulated Mars base in Utah during the summer when it's too hot to trot around in spacesuits is they have a university rover challenge. Yeah. Where teams of engineering students from universities all over the world build Mars rovers and take them out into the desert to perform a series of tasks and get points for successfully completing them. And one of the things, I saw a very nice presentation about this a couple of weeks ago. And one of the tasks is they put a mannequin out in the desert, and they tell the rover driver teams that you have we've lost an astronaut. He was last seen heading in that direction, and you need to get out there, check out his situation, and deliver him a package of emergency supplies. You only have 20 minutes to go. And only one of the 14 teams actually managed to locate the astronaut. One of the teams drove right past the mannequin, about 3 feet away. It had one camera that was looking at it. So this, and there's plenty of other things about one of the tasks was to go out to this instrument panel, basically a little chunk of wall that had been built out of the desert, to drive over there, read the instructions printed on the panel, and perform a certain number of tasks that involved flipping a couple of switches and plugging in an electrical plug. And again, only one of the 14 teams was able to plug in the electrical plug. Very difficult task for a rover. And these were rovers that had been built explicitly to perform this task. They knew what they were going to have to do before they went out there. How much more difficult, how many more mistakes do you make when you're building a rover to go to a planet that you've never been to before? So this is why we have to send people, because people are far more adaptable and flexible.
It was famously the case that robots could not tell a fork from a spoon. And I think that's a joke in WALL-E when WALL-E finds the sport and is confused. That was not a bad joke. I was referring to this old problem in robot intelligence. Also, the burning up of the 3 guys of Apollo 1 is very, very instructive, because after the fact, it seems as obvious as could be that a pure oxygen atmosphere was radically dangerous. Didn't even pun there, but in any case, what it shows is that after the fact, things are clear. That ahead of time, are sometimes even the best and brightest are going to overlook them by accident, so that it's a spooky business to leave the planet. But it's supremely interesting, and I think it's urgent to activate the human brain to explore and to get new landscape.
Yeah, to go over the mountain and see what we can.
North America occupied in a matter of thousands of years, from top to bottom, in a way that when you actually calculate it as an annual rate of movement, is just, they practically were just backpacking down the continent full speed all the time.
And you're talking about the original settlement.
And then, and they're on the motion. I mean, we like being on the move, we like new places, and if we can stimulate that, it also leads to planetary consciousness, and we need planetary consciousness really badly, so that the more we contemplate these other planets and we get into the notion of planets as places, then the more Earth itself becomes this planet that more and more seems spectacularly unlikely and precious. So it's a good thing. know, I watched the whole Mars phenomenon from right inside it, and was even learned. And even, as I said yesterday, having eaten a piece of Mars to become the first human to do that, which I'm very proud of.
Means you were also the first to use food.
Yes, well, I'm very much hoping, yeah, but I'm very much hoping that my stomach acids managed to strip off some of those atoms and that they're still in my bones and in my teeth, that I've got Mars stuff in me, I hope. But what I saw was that September 11, 2001 radically changed the game, and interest in Mars dropped from 100 to 1 in a day, because suddenly human history and its problems crashed back into our consciousness. And it has not come back. Mars has not come back as an interesting project, 9 years later. And it may be, I don't know how many years before it comes back, but the project of rebuilding interest in it as part of being interested in planets, et cetera, life in the universe, this is an ongoing project that we all need to stay engaged in, because the setback for human history, when we're not aware of these bigger issues, is really a sad thing and a kind of a hysterical response.
People ask me when I was in high school, why are you studying Latin? Latin is a dead language. Well, I study Mars. Mars is a dead planet. And what I always said is, you study Latin not because you want to speak Latin, but because you want to learn about English. Studying Latin taught me about things like the subjunctive and passive voice, and what the rules are for using various types of nouns in different places in the sentence, that I would never have understood with only one example. But by being able to learn more about Latin and compare Latin and English, I learned far more about how to use the English language effectively than I ever had before. And that's why to go to Mars is to get that binocular vision, that two different views on the same thing. Even if there is no life on Mars, there's still some very interesting geology. There's a whole history of climatology that shows us how planets' weather and climate change over time, that we can learn from studying Mars.
In the year 2000, somebody in the New York Times asked 50 big deal historians what was the most significant event in the 20th century, and they split just about evenly between World War II and the moon landing. We have September 11, and let's follow up with the Mars landing.
The major events of the 21st century.
Any questions?
It's about 15 minutes in, so we've got, let's see, you in the black and you in the hat. Is that a hat? No. I'm sorry. It's you. Yeah. So first you, then you.
Because it's such a significant effort, can we promote an international effort to do this? NASA may not be able to do it on itself. Okay, the Chinese, the Indians, the Russians, a whole world is involved in this.
NASA, Mars may be too big for NASA to make it an international effort.
Oh, sure, and we should.
I think it would be an interesting exercise. It would be an excellent project, as I said, with the engineering challenges. That it's a project where you learn to work together. It's more important than the end product. So there needs, in order for that to happen, there needs to be something to make the nations involved decide we should do something together. Hey, let's go to Mars. And what we can do is, as this is the World Science Fiction Convention. We have people here from all over the English-speaking world, and quite a few people from outside of it. We can go back home and talk to our governments and say, this is an important thing. If we don't have the resources to do it within our country, then maybe we should team up.
I have an idea. Just send 100 people, half from American, half from the Russian, and some internationals, and get the Russians.
Well, we've been able to discuss it.
Oh, yeah. Good memory, people laugh at